Everything in your life is fine. And that right there, is exactly the problem. You wake up, you do what needs to be done, you answer the messages, honor the commitments, hold the line. From the outside, everything is running smoothly. Nobody around you suspects a thing. But there is a moment, usually at night, when the noise finally stops. Sometimes in the morning, in that 1 second before the day reclaims you. A moment when you feel it with an almost embarrassing clarity. Something no longer fits. It's not pain, it's not anxiety, it's quieter than that. It's an emptiness where there used to be momentum, a heaviness where there used to be desire. You keep moving, but your steps are going nowhere new. And this has been going on longer than you're willing to admit. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You could name it if someone asked. It's that thing you've been pushing to tomorrow so many times that tomorrow has become a fictional place. It's the question someone asked you 6 months ago that you still haven't answered, not because you don't know the answer, but because the answer frightens you. It's the project you've been carrying in a corner of your mind for years and never started, because starting it would make real the fact that you're not where you thought you'd be by now. Others among you don't have a name for it yet. You feel the weight but can't locate what's pressing down. You blame exhaustion, the season, a rough patch, and every week you tell yourself it will pass. It doesn't pass. What I'm going to show you in the next few minutes will finally give a name to what you're living. The sky this week holds a configuration you will not see again in this exact form in your lifetime. And what this configuration activates in people's lives, I've been watching it for years. It is never abstract, it is always intimate, and it is often the turning point people were waiting for without knowing it. If you stay until the end, you will understand why you feel what you feel right now, what the coming days are making possible, and how to use this window to put down what's been weighing on you and walk forward lighter than you have been in months, maybe years. On March 18th at 9:23 p.m. Eastern, the moon joins the sun at 28 degrees and 26 minutes of Pisces. New moon. The sky goes completely dark. For those of you who aren't familiar with astrology, let me explain why that sentence should stop you cold. The zodiac works like a great internal clock. 12 signs, 12 steps, one complete cycle that lasts a year. Aries opens it in spring, a first breath, a first impulse. Pisces closes it in March, an exhalation, a long completion. And right now, we are in the very last seconds of that exhalation, the final degrees of the final sign, the exact point where the cycle finishes telling its story before the next one begins. 28 degrees of Pisces. In traditional astrology, when a planet reaches the final degrees of a sign, it is said to be at an anaretic degree. That word comes from the Greek. It means destruction, or more precisely, the dissolution of what no longer has a reason to exist. This is the degree where everything left unfinished, unresolved, or unacknowledged during the sign's passage comes back one last time. It doesn't knock gently, it insists. And it is the moon that falls at this degree. The moon in astrology represents everything you carry on the inside, your emotions, your memory, your habits, your deepest needs. When the moon goes dark, when it meets the sun and disappears from the sky, it's the moment when the inside and the outside come face to face, no filter, no lighting, in total silence. What you hide from the world and what the world sees of you occupy the same space for a few hours, and what no longer matches between the two becomes suddenly impossible to ignore. If you've been feeling for weeks this gap between what you show and what you actually live inside, that's your version of the final degrees of Pisces. Your body feels it, your sleep shows it. Those restless nights, that sense on waking that your mind has been working all night on something you can't quite name. Pisces rules the unconscious, everything that moves beneath the surface, and beneath your surface right now, a great deal is in motion. Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries. the Berlin Wall moment. Now let me tell you what makes this night different from every other new moon you've ever lived through. We are currently experiencing an astrological event that only occurs once every 36 years, Saturn and Neptune traveling together in the same sign. Their exact conjunction happened on February 20th at 0 degrees 45 minutes of Aries, the very first degree of the very first sign of the zodiac. Astrologers call this the vernal point, the absolute beginning of the cycle. But the last time this conjunction formed in Aries at the vernal point was in 1702, over 300 years ago. What is happening in the sky right now, you will only witness once in your life. Saturn is the architect of your life. It built the walls, set the frameworks, defined the roles, your career, your commitments, the rules you gave yourself, the limits you erected so everything would hold together. Saturn builds what lasts. Most of the time, what it builds serves you, it protects you, it gives you structure to stand on. Neptune is the water that moves through the walls. Neptune doesn't destroy anything, it reveals. It shows what is still solid and what no longer is, what still protects you and what has quietly become a cage. When these two planets meet in the same place, the question they always ask is the same. Which structures in your life are still alive, and which ones are only held together by habit, by fear of the void, by loyalty to a version of yourself that no longer exists? In 2026, in Aries, this question is addressed directly to you, to your identity, to the character you built to function in the world. Aries is the sign of the self. It's the first sign, the one that says, I am. And when Saturn and Neptune meet here, what they illuminate is the gap between who you actually are and the role you're playing. You feel that gap. You feel it when you say yes while everything inside you is screaming no. You feel it when you smile by reflex when you're exhausted. You feel it when someone asks how you're doing and your mouth answers fine before your brain has even had time to check. That gap between the autopilot and who you truly are when no one is watching, that is exactly what Saturn and Neptune in Aries are illuminating right now. And this new moon is the moment where the light becomes impossible to escape. Uranus at 28 degrees Taurus, the electric door. The new moon of March 18th arrives in this energy, and it arrives with company. Uranus at 28 degrees of Taurus forms an almost exact sextile with this new moon, less than 1 degree of separation. In astrology, when Uranus touches a new moon this precisely, something electric happens. Uranus is the planet of breakthroughs, of sudden clarity, that moment in your life when two pieces of information you've held for a long time suddenly connect and everything shifts. Not a gradual change, a pivot. Like adding the last piece of a puzzle and suddenly the whole image appears, even though each individual piece looked like nothing by itself. In the days around March 18th, this sextile opens door, but not where you're looking for it. Uranus never works in straight lines. The answer arrives through a blind spot. A detail you overlooked. A sentence someone says casually that reorganizes everything in your head. But there is one condition. Uranus only opens the door for those who are ready to see. If you're too busy holding upright something that has already fallen, you won't notice the passage. The door will be there, but you'll be looking the other way. Mars in Pisces trine Jupiter in Cancer, the current that carries. Mars is also in Pisces right now, and it's approaching an exact trine with Jupiter in Cancer. This trine perfects on March 21st, 3 days after the new moon. Mars is your action energy, your impulse, your capacity to move. In Pisces, Mars operates differently. It doesn't attack head-on. It flows. It finds the passage the way water finds the crack in the rock. Jupiter in Cancer, the sign of its exaltation, amplifies everything Mars initiates. And a trine is the most fluid aspect in astrology. No obstacle, no friction, just a current. And everything you place in that current moves forward. What this means concretely, the decisions you make in this window between March 18th and 22nd don't remain intentions. They find a path. What you've been delaying for months finds its moment. The projects you've been carrying in silence find breath. And the gestures that frighten you most find a gentleness that wouldn't have been available at any other time this year. The water signs carry. Let them carry you. Mercury retrograde in Pisces, the messenger in the deep. There is one more element that most astrologists skip when they discuss this new moon, and it changes everything. Mercury is retrograde in Pisces. Most people hear Mercury retrograde and think delays, miscommunications, tech failures. That's the simplified version. What actually happens when Mercury moves backward through the final degrees of Pisces is far deeper. It brings you back. It excavates memory. It unearths promises you buried. It returns you to people, places, and versions of yourself you thought you'd moved beyond. Right now, Mercury retrograde is conjunct the moon's north node. In astrology, the lunar nodes represent your life trajectory. The north node points toward who you're becoming. The south node points toward what you must release. And Mercury retrograde, passing over this point, acts as a messenger, delivering precisely the information you need to understand where you stand on that path. This might be an unexpected message, a name that resurfaces, a memory rising with new force, Mercury doing its work hand in hand with this new moon. While the moon invites you to recognize what is finished, Mercury shows you precisely what must be recognized. The sequence that changes everything. 48 hours after this dark night, on March 20th, two things happen on the same day. The sun crosses 0 degrees Aries, the spring equinox, the very first day of the astrological new year. The entire cycle restarts from 0. And Mercury stations direct, as if the sky had orchestrated the whole sequence with perfect intention. 3 days of slowing down, 3 days of forced lucidity, 3 days where the past returns to be recognized, where the present reveals itself as it truly is, where the future waits for you to make space. Then, everything restarts. Mercury moves forward. The sun enters the fire of Aries. Spring begins. The Mars-Jupiter trine perfects the next day. Which means the energy of action, the raw capacity to transform a decision into real movement, is at its absolute maximum precisely at the moment the new cycle begins. Do you understand what this means? What you agree to set down in the dark of the 18th, the light of the equinox receives. What you plant in the silence of this new moon, spring takes and makes grow. And Mars-Jupiter gives it force, breath, and direction. But there is the other scenario, the one where you set nothing down, where you arrive at March 20th with fists closed, gripping what is finished, convinced that if you hold long enough, it will somehow come to life. It won't. Aries is the sign of beginning. It doesn't know how to build on ruins. It doesn't know how to pretend. Hand it emptiness disguised as fullness, and it will build on that, and everything will collapse in the months that follow. This isn't a threat. It's celestial mechanics. The fire of Aries needs real fuel. Give it something true. What the sky is actually asking of you this week is not an act of spectacular courage. It's not a breakup. It's not a grand speech or an irreversible decision. It's something smaller and harder than any of that. It's a moment of honesty, a moment where you sit with yourself and look at your life as it actually is, without the story you tell yourself to make it bearable, without the role you play to make it presentable, as it is. And in that looking, you will see two things: what is still alive and what isn't, what still carries you forward and what's holding you back. Most real endings don't look like what we imagine. There's no slamming door, no shout, no dramatic scene. There's just a moment of quiet clarity, a moment when you look at something you've lived alongside every day, and you see, perhaps for the first time, that you no longer believe in it. Not with anger, not with grief, with a strange calm, as if you've known for a long time but were waiting for permission to acknowledge it. This week, the sky gives you that permission. And what comes after, what nobody tells you in the astrology videos promising miracles and manifestations, is that the relief doesn't arrive immediately. It comes after. After the moment you've put down what you were carrying, after the first step without the weight. You expect sadness. What arrives is lightness. You expect regret. What arrives is a breath you haven't taken in months. That is the gift of this new moon. Not magic, not fantasy, the simple mechanics of a human being who recognizes the truth of their own life, and in recognizing it, sets themselves free. Your sign this week. Aries. Saturn and Neptune just entered your sign, and this new moon falls in your 12th house, the house of endings. Something in you resists that word. You're a sign of beginnings, not conclusions. But spring cannot start if winter refuses to end. What you release before March 20th is exactly what frees the space for what arrives in April. Not a loss, an exchange. Taurus. Uranus in your sign receives the direct sextile from this new moon. You are at the center of this configuration. A group, a community, a circle you thought you didn't belong to is going to signal you this week. Your first instinct will be to say it's too soon, you're not ready, you don't have enough to offer. Notice that reflex, then ignore it. Gemini. 10th house, your reputation, your visible trajectory. Someone is forming an opinion of you right now, and that opinion will have consequences. You can't control what they think. You can control what you show them. The version of you that exists on March 20th is the one that enters spring. Choose it deliberately. Cancer. Jupiter is in your sign, and it's receiving the trine from Mars in Pisces. Of all 12 signs, you receive the most from this new moon. Something is going to present itself between the 18th and 22nd, an opening, a proposal, an idea that seems to come from nowhere. Your head will want to analyze, your gut already knows. This week, trust your gut. Leo. 8th house. There is a subject you've been skirting since the beginning of the year. You know exactly which one. Every time it surfaces, you find something else to do, someone else to help, a more urgent problem to solve. This week, there will be nothing between you and that subject. This isn't punishment, it's the last layer falling before you can finally breathe. Virgo. Pisces is your opposite sign. This new moon falls directly in your 7th house, your mirror. Everything you're analyzing in others this week is a reflection of something you're refusing to see in yourself. It's not comfortable, it's useful. The next time someone deeply irritates you, ask yourself what that trait is showing you about you. The answer might surprise you. Libra. 6th house. Your daily life, your habits, the mechanics of your days. You're looking for a grand transformation when what's going to change everything is microscopic. One gesture you do every day without thinking, one that has been quietly draining your energy for months. This week, you'll see it like background noise you'd stopped hearing, suddenly going silent. The quiet that follows will show you exactly what it was costing you. Scorpio. 5th house. Something you've created is waiting in the shadows. A piece of writing, a project, an idea that carries your fingerprint and that you've been keeping to yourself because showing it would make you vulnerable. Scorpio prefers secret power to exposure. But what no one can see cannot live. The question this week is simple. Do you prefer the safety of the vault or the risk of the light? Sagittarius. 4th house. Your foundations. There is a memory that's been trying to surface for weeks. Not a painful one, a foundational one. The one that holds the reason you made the choice that defined everything else. That memory returns this week with new clarity. Let it come. It isn't here to haunt you. It's here to remind you of something you forgot about yourself. Capricorn. 3rd house. There is a sentence you're carrying inside, a sentence you haven't said to anyone yet. Not because you can't find the words, but because you feel their weight, and that weight holds you back. This week, someone will unknowingly create the exact opening for that sentence to be spoken. Don't hold it back this time. What you say will not fall into silence. Aquarius, second house, your resources, your relationship to what you're worth, not what you earn, what you're worth. There is a gap between the two, and it has been quietly eroding you for a long time. Pluto is transiting your sign. This transit doesn't enrich you, it forces you to look at why you keep accepting less than you deserve. The answer to that question is worth more than any raise. Pisces, this is your new moon, your sign, your night. Everything described here you are living at the first degree, not as a spectator, but as the protagonist. You are at the end of a 12-month chapter, and the only question that matters now is not what is going to happen to me. It's what do I choose to carry into what comes next. The new cycle begins in 48 hours, and it belongs to you. March 18th, the sky gives you clarity. March 20th, spring gives you the starting line. March 21st, Mars and Jupiter give you the momentum. But everything begins with a single gesture. Open your hands, acknowledge what is finished, say it, even in silence, even just to yourself, and let spring do what spring knows how to do. The rest belongs to Aries, and Aries doesn't waste time.